Hey guys, this is Nico. Ever thought why you couldn't remember large quantity of data? Or when it comes to learning a language like Japanese, why you keep on forgetting things you already have learned? What if I tell you that in 15 seconds you can probably learn and remember 5 Japanese words for the rest of your life? Too good to be true, right? Well, stay tuned until the end of the video to see how. The truth is that there's a simple way to hack your brain in basically remembering anything. But that you kind of already figured out by the title of this video, but I'm going to provide you my intakes on the importance to learn differently when it comes to learning a new language like Japanese. But like I told you, this can be applicable to almost all the subjects. And if you ever dreamt of memorizing big amount of knowledge or data, but you couldn't quite figure out how to do so, well, this video is for you. In order to learn and to memorize in a better way, it is crucial to understand the brain's tendency to function and to work. By doing so, we will see it's basically necessary to hack it. The important is to go against our initial intuition when it comes to learning and memorizing. Because we usually take a very linear approach when it comes to learning and memorizing things, and that's the legacy and the heritage we have of our school system that is based on repetition. The only problem with repetition, and it has one big flaw, one major flaw, and that major flaw is that it takes a ridiculously long time to memorize things. If we take the example of kanji, for instance, there's around 2,000 kanji you should know to master the language. Japanese kids spend more than 10 years learning them based on repetition. But that's fine, because they're immersed in a fully Japanese context full of kanji. But if you were to apply that same method, it would probably take you more than 10 years. Thankfully, there's a better way to do it and a more efficient one. And that's what we're going to see in this video, that is going to be segmented in 3 main categories. First category, we're going to understand how the brain works and how basically it's important and why it's important to hack it. Secondly, we're going to see how you can basically hack your brain and the principle behind it. And thirdly and lastly, we're going to see straight up examples on how you can apply that to Japanese with this famous promise I made early on in the video, how in 15 seconds you can remember for the rest of your life 5 Japanese words. Firstly, it's important to understand the theory behind it and how the brain works. And it's quite clear that it is necessary to learn differently and basically take some perspective when it comes to our traditional way of learning and memorizing. A powerful image to understand that could be the following. Listening and repetition or visual memory could be seen as RAM on a computer, and basically every single time you try to learn something new, it wipes out the previous one. But thankfully we have other types of memory that are much more suited for purpose. Orientation memory, process memory, or other types of memory are much more stable. The truth is that experts in memorizing actually tend to use those types of memory to perform. And this is the underlying problem for most Japanese learners. As they tend to learn more and more vocabulary, they as well tend to forget what they already have learned. Which brings us to another part of how you can basically learn, memorize, or understand a language. And if we take a vastly summarized vision, basically our brain is divided in 2 parts, a left part and a right part. The left part is seen as vastly analytical and sequential, whereas the right part is holistical, global, and you basically need both of them to understand in a very good way or in a very right way a language. So when it comes to the language, basically both of your brain parts work together. The left part, a very sequential aspect, will focus on the literal meaning of the words, the sound, the syntax, etc. Whereas the right part, the more global or holistic part, will focus on the global aspect of the phrase, the non-verbal aspect that you try to convey throughout your sentence, for instance. So that's why if you want to understand and grasp a whole language, your learning method should embrace those two aspects. Which brings us to our second part of the video, which is basically how you can better learn things. First of all, you should start identifying why you are starting learning a new language or learning Japanese. This will basically provide you the necessarily motivational insight that will be needed for you to carry on throughout your learning process. Second, start applying a creative, reference-based way of memorizing things. This will help you mobilize the stable part of your memory. And in order to do so, you could refer yourself to very vivid images or deeply personal reference-based images. Third, try to identify what kind of reference works best for you. There's no perfect way to do it, but remember one thing. The more personal and or vivid the connection is, the longer you will remember it. Last but not least, the secret lies between reference-based memory and repetition. As mentioned before, reference-based memory is here to assist the less stable part of your memory. Nevertheless, it needs to be completed by a more traditional way of going, like repetition. If you want to learn more about repetition, you could use an open source software, which is Anki. This software, Anki, is quite popular among the Japanese learning community. And it basically applies the spaced repetition principle that was invented by an American linguist in the 60s. For obvious reason, I'm not going to be able to share all my vivid and personal connections, right? But nevertheless, here are some examples. Which brings us to the third part of this video. Now that we have seen how to better learn and memorize things, we're going to see how we can apply this to straight up examples in Japanese. Let's take two first examples. The first one is going to be geography in Japanese. Geography in Japanese is chiri, chiri. In terms of phonetic, in terms of how we listen to it, it makes us think of the country Chile, right? So basically, now that if you are able to position the country Chile on a map, then that means you know well your geography. That's for the first example. The second example is about public park. Public park in Japanese is koen, koen. So basically, same thing, and no judgment here, but in Japanese, it makes you think of a very famous Jewish last name, which is Cohen. And the Cohen family, in terms of history, for you to remember, the Cohen family likes to go on a walk in the public park. To make connections even more memorable, you can construct small history around a word you are trying to learn. Let's take three other examples. The first one is the word flower. Flower in Japanese is hana, hana. Same thing as public park. In terms of phonetics, the way you listen to it, it can make you think of a very popular first name, which is Hana. And the story you can construct around that is you can say, Hana Cohen likes to smell flowers at the park. So that's for the first example. For the second example, you can take the example of vase. Vase in terms where you put a flower. Vase in Japanese is kabin, kabin. This can make you think of a cabin in a ship, for instance, or a small boat. And the story you can construct around that is basically, well, a sailor, when he goes to sail for a long period of time, he likes to bring to his cabin a vase with a flower inside to remember his wife. That's for the second example. For the third one, we're going to choose a very, let's say, vivid image, which is about danger or caution. Caution or danger in Japanese is chui, chui. For those Star Wars fans out there, you might already have figured it out. But the nickname for Chewbacca in Star Wars is Chewie. And the story you can construct around this is always be very cautious about Chewie because he's a real beast. So here you have it. Those are three examples and two before of Japanese words. And if you construct the right, basically, scheme and image in your memory, well, you will be able to remember this for the rest of your life. So guys, that wraps up the video. I really hope this helped you in any sort of way. I personally loved making it. Please hit that like button if you appreciated it, and tell me in the comment section down below what you would like to see next. Don't hesitate to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notified for any new upcoming videos. And until then, see you soon. Bye bye, matane.